Okay, I think we're going to get started in a minute. Today we'll be learning Help I've Been Hacked by Wynne. Wynne has worked at the University of Georgia for 22 years. He has been managing websites for 14 years. David oversees 110 research websites on the WordPress platform. This year he managed the migration of all 110 sites from local servers to WP Engine servers. He has kept very busy rebranding of all these websites with the new UGA brand. Dave also has his own business, Flatwood Home Care, for 16 years. And Dave is like many web developers in that he is too busy to keep his own website up to date. So at least I know I can relate to that. So.
Thank you.
And here he is.
Well, y'all are hardcore because you've made it to the end. And you still look awake. It's quite good. So in the position I am in now, I inherited 2 years ago. And when I inherited it, it turned out that one of our servers was hacked. And so we learned the hard way of how easily it is to be hacked and the pain it takes to get your site unhacked. And so I'm going to share some of what we've learned from this experience, hoping that you will never have to experience being hacked. So this is really, I'm not going to go into deep detail in 45 minutes. There's no way that you can cover everything that you need to about being hacked. So it's going to be a general overview, and it's going to give you resources that you can use to work on not being hacked and also to recover from being hacked. So security is not absolute. We all know this. It's a continuous process. And as a web developer or administrator or whatever you're doing as far as WordPress, it's something that should be on your radar every day and every week as you need to keep up with it, okay? So even this week, a new WordPress problem has come out where they're able to hack as you're setting up a WordPress site. And so you need to be aware of that, that's a new thing on the horizon. And so hopefully you won't get hacked as you are setting up your WordPress site. So why does WordPress sites get hacked and why is it me? So my little business website, not much there. I use it to make myself look legit. All of my work, and I'm usually booked 4 months in advance, comes from word of mouth. So I really didn't need it for marketing and all those kind of things. There's not much on my website, but I can tell you that it gets visited all the time trying to hack it. And so they're out there, they're looking at your website, and so they're wanting to use your website for spam, for data, putting malicious software on it to use your server for other things like spamming other people. And a lot of these security breaches that we've had lately where they ransomware your website. Unfortunately, WordPress has been involved in some of those where they've gotten into a WordPress server and then they've gone and hacked people because they've clicked on a page and then they put the whole hospital of ransomware to get their data back. How do you know that you've been hacked? For a long time, we weren't quite sure if we had been hacked, what was going on. We knew something was just not right with our website. You can have spam in your header and footer, and you don't even know it because they can hide that from showing up when you're looking at the stuff, but they're using your website so other people who are not at your IP address will see what's going on. Google is very aggressive about hacked sites. And so Google will put you on a list. You don't want to ever get on Google's bad list because it really takes a lot of work to get back off of it. Your clients or people using your URL will tell you about being hacked, that their antivirus suddenly said, no, this is not a good site. And then the host of your website might contact you and said, look, we've got to close you down. You've been hacked. So those are the ways that you can know that you've been hacked. Our servers slowed down tremendously. The hackers didn't do a lot of problems to our servers, but they were there. They had put a backdoor onto our site. If they had actually activated that back door, they could have taken over our whole server. So how do you recover from being hacked? Good question. I'm here able to talk to you, so there is life after being hacked. So that's the good news. I still have my job. That's the other good news. Our site is no longer hacked. You need to harden websites, and these are things that don't automatically get taught to you as you set up a WordPress site or as you're working in an institution with websites. Until we got hacked, we didn't even know the word hardening. So basically, these are steps that you can take to make it more difficult for people to get into your WordPress site and do damage to your WordPress site. If you Google hardening WordPress, you'll come up with this link, and it'll give you all the steps to hardening. If you're new to WordPress or you're not a programmer like a lot of us, how many are programmers in the room? So there are about half of programs. You might not want to go through the hardening process, and the easiest thing to do is set up a firewall, and that's quite easy to do. So the first thing you want to do is to scan your website to see if it's been hacked, okay? And there's lots of tools. Site check is one of them. WordPress security audit is another one. And then there's plugins that you can use within your site to see if you've been hacked. So I did the new one, WordPress I did recently, and it was quite interesting, the stuff that came out on my site. And so it even lets, it's just good to run that tool on a regular basis, one of those tools. The biggest thing that we did on our hacked website was after we realized we had been hacked and we had removed the code that had been written onto our website, was to put up a firewall. And we used WordFence, but there's lots of good products out there, so I'm not recommending one over the other. But WordFence has it's free. They have a free version, and it actually does a great job. You don't need to go with Pro if you don't need to. And that's where you learn how often your site is just being hammered. People trying to hammer your website is once you put up a firewall, it's going to let you know when your site's being hammered. Okay? It lets you know where it's being hammered from. The other thing that's good about these products, they let you know when your plugin gets out of date and to update your plugins and your themes. So it'll send you an email saying, look, you're out of date, you need to update this one, which happens every day if you have quite a few plugins. So I would recommend Firewall for anybody that has a website, okay? Now the firewall is an external firewall, meaning that they're coming through your firewall. You don't have to put it onto your server, okay? But since I have done that, we've not had any trouble. The other thing that happens when you're hacked is your URL gets put onto a list. And it's sent out all over the world, and that URL is going to always be tempted for them to try out and keep on hacking you, trying to hack you. So you scan your local environment. Depending on what you oversee, you definitely want to keep your hardware, your local computer. So you need to have an antivirus and spamware on your local computer because you're using that computer to interact with WordPress. You need to scan your softwares, the different software that you're using. A lot of this ransomware is because of Microsoft. Why Microsoft? Why, you know, it's a big product. It's easy to, they want to get the bang for their bucks. Same with WordPress. Why is WordPress so heavily hacked or tried to be hacked at? It's 27% of the content management system. So it's, you know, you get big bang for your buck if you can hack into WordPress. It's not that WordPress is any worse or better than any other content management system. It's just a big one, just like Microsoft. You'll need to also, if you're overseeing your servers, you need to make sure the patches for your PHP and your Apache, it's all up to date. And so this is important that you might say, oh, WannaCry attack happened to Microsoft. That doesn't involve me because I'm WordPress. Well, if you're running Microsoft on your computer that you're going to work on WordPress, that's a doorway that they can get into. So make sure that your operating systems are up to date, that you're running antivirus, and putting up firewalls to protect your environment. A lot of times, once they've hacked into your site, they will put malicious code into your files. And I was talking to, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Andrew again. And he was talking about how he noticed that his files, when he was moving them over, had new dates put on them where the rest of the files had an older date. And so he could tell from that that those files maybe had been updated by somebody other than himself. And that's what happened to us, was that when we started looking for files, we noticed that certain files were getting changed on a regular basis, and that was where the code had been written. What we did was we took that code and then we put it on a server that didn't talk to the outside world, and then we activated that code and turned it out to be a backdoor. And through that backdoor, if they had activated it on a live server, they would have been able to take over everything, every file, everything about our server. So we removed it, but to remove the malicious code, a lot of times you're going to have to go into your database and start working with files. If you're a new person at using WordPress, you might not be comfortable working with the database, because you can really screw up your site very quickly if you happen to change something that was very important. So what we did was, whenever you're working with databases, you've got to back it up. The files that you're working with, you want to back those up, and then you can replace it back if you've made a mistake and removed the wrong thing. Okay. But if you're not up to it, then WordFence or security will be glad to help you with patching and fixing your damaged files. So this server kept getting hacked, trying to get hacked into, and we just were not happy. And so we actually paid WordFence to come in. And all you have to do is buy 1 year's worth of Pro, and they'll be glad to work with you to unhack your site. So for $59, it was really worth that price to get their support. So that's what we did. How many people are doing the files and the database on their sites? Okay. Yeah. So if you're not, then you're really going to want to get a professional in there to help you. Here are the areas that cause us to get hacked. And you'll see up here, themes and plugins. Those are the two big ones, okay? And so if you're not backing up your website, and if you're not updating your website for themes, then the likelihood is that you're going to get hacked. And so we were using an online form plugin, and it had not been updated for about a year. And that's how they got into our server. We finally figured that out. And so a lot of times it's your plugins. So what you want to do is make sure that you're using the themes that are active on your website. If they're not active on you're no longer using those themes or those plugins, get rid of them, okay? Turning them off is not good enough. You need to get rid of them, okay? Then you look at your servers, and so people talk about, well, how do you pick out a good theme and how do you pick out a good plugin? I always look to see how many people are using them, okay? And the second thing I look at is how often it's being updated. If it hasn't, as someone said in one of the earlier sessions, if it hasn't been updated in 6 months, then I start thinking, I might need to start looking elsewhere, okay? We tend to buy our themes and plugins, and the reason we do that is that you get good support for the price, and usually it's not that expensive, but that does not guarantee that you're going to be able to have a good plugin just because you purchased it. Okay, so you want to control uploading of files to your site. You want to do backups on a regular basis and stay updated. If you stay updated and back up on a regular basis and have a firewall, the likelihood is it's going to be very low that you'll get hacked into. So this is, again, saying what you need to do. And you need to make sure that your WordPress core is up to date. And it's amazing how many people don't do that on a regular basis. And so how many people wait a little while before they update their core after it's released? Yeah. Because usually they come out with another fix for some of the problems, and you don't want to run into those problems. And so that's something I've noticed with WordPress engine is that they don't update as soon as it comes out. They wait a little bit, and then they tell me it's time to update. And so, yeah.
Do you mind if I?
Sure.
There's a slight irony there for us, because we were using servers that the university sets up, and they have firewall rules that are a pain to change. So that prevents the one-click update in the dashboard from working. The WordPress.org URL is not in the firewall rules. So the irony is that it makes it more difficult to update the security on the website. Server. I don't know, it seems funny, but
I agree.
Probably a pretty common.
It is. My university actually, so we just moved all our sites to WP Engine, which has been great. And then last week, suddenly our university blocked WP Engine so that we couldn't even access. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I quickly looked around to see if the URLs all my URLs were still working. They were working. It was only anything that had WP Engine in the URL. And so I had to contact the information services and say, okay, why have you done this? And
they put in a ticket.
They put in a ticket.
48 hours.
Well, they did it quick. So I was very impressed. But yeah, and so those are the constraints in higher ed, is that when I started working with WordPress, is that I'm the front-end developer. I'm not the sysadmin. And so then you have to work with your sysadmin, or you have to work across campus with the people that can do security for the university. And so, and then your server might not be something that you have much control over. So those are issues. Yeah. So that's why, truthfully, I moved off the servers at our university. Was now I directly talk to the WP Engine support, and it's a lot easier than my sysadmins were. The other thing that we have trouble at the university, if you're like mine, is that access to your sites is always changing. People are being, every month people are coming on doing websites and stuff, and there was different ways of monitoring that. But it's really hard, but you need to monitor your users. There are plugins that will help you monitor who's using your websites and who's active on your website, who's not active, so that you can go back and start asking, okay, is it okay for me to delete this person? Okay. Also, sharing of passwords is just never a good idea. At our university, we do use one login, so that part's good. But we're not notified when someone leaves. So that's the bad part. So you kind of have, grad students that graduate, undergrad students that graduate, that go with them with a password that can log into. And it can also be staff and people that work on your team move on, and you don't delete them out of all your WordPress sites. I think the two-step login is becoming very popular, and I would recommend doing that. And so we use Duo. Duo is working quite well for us, and you can set that up to where, just like with Google, when you get ready to log in, you tell them that you need two-step login, and then they'll send a text to your phone or wherever you choose to have it sent. And then the firewalls will also help with your login and making it stronger. WordPress has done a good job of making stronger passwords so that you can't use 123 ABC anymore. Or if you do, you have to do the extra click saying, yes, I know it's not a good password. And so what you want to do is, one person talked how their department, what they do is the department, they give a department login for that site. We really don't like that because you don't know who's doing what, and you don't want faculty. Faculty are notorious at giving their passwords out to all their students, and so you don't really know who's going to be able to log in. So by using WordFence, we tightened the login too. We're going to talk about other ways of tightening down your access to your website. Everybody's moving to SFTP, hopefully, with the moving of data around, but I still hear people that aren't doing that. You want to do SSL on your websites. Google is going to reward you if you do that, keep you up on the list. It's not hard to do that anymore, so Let's Encrypt will give you your certificates that you need. That's one of the nice things I liked with WP Engine was I was able no longer to work through the university system to get my SSL certificates. I was able to just click a button, and within a few minutes I had the certificate to Let's Encrypt. So really nobody should have a unsecure URL because too much data is being spread across the internet with your URLs that you're using. If you're working off-site, and lots of people, how many people are working off-site? No? Nobody? One? Okay. I do, because I go out to Arizona a lot, and I work in coffee houses or in coffee shops to do my work, so I can work anywhere in the world. But you really want to use VPN and make sure that you're secure working in these open wireless systems, because anybody can be sniffing what's going across the internet. And so, again, that's something that I would strongly recommend is that you can get a VPN program if you're working other than the machines within your office. So the resources of Google gives you great resources about using SSL and why they're pushing it. They want to make the website web safe, and then you can get your certificate at Let's Encrypt. So this is talking about how firewalls are important and what they do to stop your site. How many people have been hit by a brute force? Yeah. And it just, our university got hit, and it just, everything grinds to slow as they're trying to fight, because it's really hard to fight off a brute attack. And so one of the things that I like about having our information on cloud is that brute force is doesn't affect me and our website as much as it did when we were on servers and we had a limited information going out of one cable from Athens to Atlanta. And so by having a firewall, it's going to help you a lot to protect your site from these different types of attacks. And you really don't even have to understand them. Just let the firewall do its job. But the good thing is that if you join up with their newsletters, they will tell you what's happening out there. So 15 minutes reading a week, you'll know what's going on out there as far as attacks going on and what needs to be. And they do a good job. I get a newsletter from WordFence letting you know what plugins have been the latest ones to be attacked and which ones have vulnerabilities. And a lot of them have been #1 plugins that a lot of us are using. And so it's good to know when they have a problem. I think the latest one that I got last week was the all-in-one migration tool had a problem with it. And so then it lets you know, okay, you need to make sure you've got the latest version of that if you're going to keep using it, and maybe you don't want to use it this week until they figure out what, they give you a fix for that plugin. I hope your firewall is better than the wall of China. That's why I put it up there. If not, you'll be like me and have a hacked site. Getting close to the end. These are advanced hardening sites, hardening things that you can do. One is hide your WordPress version so that they don't know what version you're running. So they don't see, oh, this person hasn't updated their version for 3 updates. And so there might have been some weaknesses in that version of WordPress, and so that they'll start working on that. You can relocate or rename your login page. You can secure your WP config file. You can disable file editing. You can also control what gets loaded up into the upload folder. The same with the site admin, you can tighten that down. And I'm going to click here real quick. All of this is listed in detail on the Kodak. So if you go to just hardening WordPress, you'll go to this page and you'll get this information. The nice thing about it, if you don't feel comfortable doing this manually, going into your code itself and typing in the code to fix it, there's almost a plugin for each of these that will do it for you. So if you're new at WordPress and you don't feel comfortable going in and writing into your config file or those kind of things, you can normally find a recommended plugin that will do that for you. And so I personally would be more comfortable doing that than screwing up my config file. But if you want to go in, and the code is really not that hard to do to fix these things, just back it up, save another copy of your config file, bring the config file down, put the little line of code in there, send it back up, and it's great, okay? Remember, don't freak out. It's not the end of the world. You can recover from this, especially if you have backed up your site on a regular basis. You'll want to, because you'll want to use your backup to get copies of the files that were good back onto the server, okay? And so if you're backing up, we back up every night, then the likelihood is that you're going to find a good version of your file that you need to replace the old one, and that makes cleaning up your site much easier. So we're open for questions and answers. Any questions? Okay. Thanks. Question in the back. Oh, okay. Yes. There you go. It's 495. Okay. You have a question?
You had mentioned initially that you noticed on your header and footer that there was some hacked code in there. Do you have to see that from the back end, or how would you see that from the front end? Or
You actually can use, there are applications out there that you can go to that will view your code and reveal what's being in the code. Okay, so Google has some help, so you can put some the URL into Google and it'll help you find that, see if the code's being.
okay. And then the other security plugins will help not to have it happen to you.
Yeah, so yeah, WordFence or Security are the two that are really good. Yeah. And their free versions are all you would need.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I was going to contribute is WordFence has a file change scanner feature that is extremely useful because they'll send you an email every morning telling you which file on your site have changed.
Oh.
And often it's just your cache file has been updated. That's fine. Sometimes it sends you an email saying header.php has been updated, and you didn't do that. So that's an invaluable, WordPress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Security has that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of them have quite a few tools within the free version that will help you do all of this. And if you run into a problem, they will help you with the problem. Yeah, good point. Yes.
I think you mentioned in your bio that you manage research websites. Do you think the content of those, the research content on those sites contributed to the attractiveness of hacking those?
No, I think it was the outdated plugin. Yeah.
So it's just a website.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, there wasn't a system for updating the plugins and the themes on a regular basis. When I took over, we had lots of themes. So different years, different themes kind of thing. And plugins was, and I'm still cleaning up the website after 2 years, different websites, in the sense that we have all these plugins that are, I don't know which website they're being used. You know, so I'm auditing everything, learning to figure out, okay, which ones can I delete that we're not still using? And then we're slowly getting rid of the old themes and replacing them with, we're going to one theme for all of our sites. It's easier to keep up to date. So
WordPress is very good at it.
yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You just got me thinking. Back with the WordPress server. Now, I'm not a developer or anything. I'm not a system man, but it's kind of like what interests me. I'll tell you how we do our backups. We back up the VM. That's it. How would you back up a WordPress site? I don't know if my developers do it.
So if it's just one site, you can export it down to your desktop.
We've got 1,000 pages.
Yeah. So
We just back up
You're
the
backing
VM.
up just the VM image. What tool are you using? Because I know Veeam and a lot of other VM tools you can just do it. They will let you get into the files just even on Linux and Unix. You can get individual files back that way.
My answer to that is I'm not 100% sure because I've been administrator.
yeah.
One that in here, but you can answer the question.
Yeah, Veeam has a tool so that you can, and I'm not sure if it's something that you have to pay extra for, but Veeam has a tool where you can do a file level restore, so you can pull out just stuff from this one site without having to restore the entire VM.
You see, that's the problem. You've got to restore back in VM. It's going to take a couple of hours. So, just kind of worried, wondering, back it up like locally, sort of plug-in or something.
Yeah, there are lots of plugins that will back up a site for you. So basically just take the site, zip it up, dump the database, put it in that file and say, here is your site. You just download this one big file. Some of them probably. But you, I mean, you shouldn't be such a fool anyway. You got it? It's just, right. I mean, it's just personal opinion. Once your site's been hacked, you can reinstall and forward.
I was in his situation with our sysadmins, in that they said they were backing up our site nightly. And then I did an update, and I always went to them and said, please make sure it's backed up. I'm going to do updates. And then I had a plugin malfunction, and I lost the data because of the update. So then I went to the sysadmin and said, can you restore it really quick, you know? Well, when he went to look for the backup, it actually had not backed up. They weren't checking on those kind of things. And so those are the things that you can run into. That's one of the reasons I went to WP Engine, is that it's backed up every night, and I can click a button myself and back it up before I do updates. And so it's well worth the money I'm spending to have that control over my backups, and knowing that it's on a cloud, you know, it's going to be very hard to hack into one server, you know.
It might be worth mentioning also that you may be backing up a hacked website.
Sure.
Your backup might
Hack.
also.
Yeah. So.
David, the others do that, they have to do a database, script to do that, make sure it's not. And yeah, I think it's something kind of hard to remember, and make sure the password, WordPress is now making you generate, there's a lot of gibberish instead of getting password, like they generate strong password.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to really help. I remember that was one thing I found. So then definitely make sure that you have like, harder to remember usernames and really crazy passwords. And change them repeatedly. And multi-site, like if you've got users on there that aren't on there a lot, sometimes it seems like hackers want to try to find those usernames that aren't actually used. I don't know how they didn't know that, but they'll try to go into the site to that. They'll direct people to send a password to me or something, and somehow they their focus post or page or something like that. Something. I'll say no. Always trying to do something.
The other thing that WordPress does is that when you add the person's with their username, that's the only name that they give, and so that's what shows up when they're doing posts and stuff. And so we make sure that that's not the name that shows up in the post. We give their last name or a letter in their last name as the name that's going to show up throughout the website instead of the username. So, but it's default, if you don't fill in those fields, the username is the default that will show up if they produced a post. Yep.
So we don't allow admins to post.
Right.
We only let editors and authors post. Admins go in and do maintenance, but they don't post like the admin username ideally or never.
Right.
When you're setting up a new install, it allows you to set the database table prefix. Defaults to WP underscore, but
That should always be
you can change
changed.
it, and I've read that that's a good preventative measure,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure if it is.
It's recommended.
It's recommended. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't have a sense for how hackers get into a site. You mentioned that you can move the WP login page.
Mm-hmm. And there's a plugin. Yeah, there's a plugin to do that if you want to use the plugin. Mm-hmm.
And I imagine file uploads would be a sensitive area.
Doesn't-
Are there other areas that you or anyone know of that they can actually get in?
Well, if you have not controlled what can be written onto your site, so the upload folder, if they can execute a script in that upload folder, then that's going to be a weakness there. So you're going to want to harden that folder down so that the scripts don't have permission to activate themselves. Yeah. And you can limit what files can be uploaded too. It's pretty broad. So if you're not using all those files on your website, why allow all those file types to be loaded up onto your website? Yeah. Good question. Any other question?
Is there a plugin available for like users that don't go on a lot, where they can be deactivated after a specific amount of time, or does anyone use like timeout duration, where people are logged in to constantly actively log in and enter your password or something like that?
There are plugins that let you monitor what's going on as far as users on your websites. So I would recommend that. I don't think it automatically logs them off. But I think it's good to know, if you're like me with so many users, it's good to know who's on there and doing stuff. The other thing is that WordPress is good about letting you know when a new user account's been created. So that's always, if I don't recognize the name, then I go check out what's going on. Now, monitoring your website is very important. So don't assume your sysadmin's doing it. I've had too many Nazi sysadmins, so I feel your pain.
You said you moved your sites to a hosted solution.
Mm-hmm.
But you also said University of Georgia has a central authentication.
Mm-hmm.
It's called one login or something like that.
Yeah.
Are you able to use that with an external host?
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's one of the things you want to ask when you're looking for an external server. Yeah. Most of them will do support that. Yeah. So. Good. Well, if not, thank you so much.
I think everyone just, again, remember to fill out the survey.